Hey there, my name is Cameron. Welcome to 3D Layer Techniques. These training videos are a complement to the 3D Camera Techniques series, so if you haven't watched that series yet, please do. In the next several videos, you are going to learn about 3D layers inside of After Effects. Flat 2D motion design can look great, but adding 3D elements can make motion design awesome. So let's dive in and get started. This is Motion Science. To make a 2D layer 3D, the process is simple. Go to the timeline, and with the selection tool, click here. Using the default classic renderer, a 3D layer remains flat, but properties for Z position, anchor point, scale, orientation, and rotation all become active. By default, 3D layers have a Z position value of 0, meaning that they stay centered in the scene. Axis modes help to orient the 3D layer position and rotation. In After Effects, there are 3 axis modes. Local aligns the X, Y, and Z axes to the 3D layer. World mode aligns the axes to the composition. So no matter the changes to a layer's rotation, the axes are always relative to the composition. And View mode aligns the axes to the selected view. By placing a 3D camera in the scene and moving around, the axes will always orient towards the camera view. To position or rotate the 3D layer on its axes, use the selection and rotation tools found in the Tools panel. The shortcut for selection is V, and the shortcut for rotation is W. 3D layers can also be positioned or rotated by going to the timeline panel and directly inputting numbers for the property values, or by hovering over the property, clicking and dragging. By holding down the Shift key while dragging, property values can change more quickly to higher or lower values. A pro tip that is sometimes useful to control orientation of 3D layers is to use the Auto Orient function. Go to Layer, Transform, Auto Orient, and choose Orient Along Path when a layer needs to follow a motion path, or Orient Towards Camera when a layer needs to always face the camera. Material options specify how 3D layers interact with lights and shadows. To access material options quickly, with the 3D layer selected, tap AA on the keyboard. The first material option, Cast Shadows, enables a 3D layer to cast shadows on other 3D layers. The 3 modes are Off, On, and Only. Only turns the layer visibility off, but the layer still casts the shadow. Light transmission is the amount of color from a 3D layer that is cast as a shadow. No light transmission produces a dark, black shadow, while a value of 100% light transmission casts 100% of the layer color onto the shadow. Accepts shadows turns on the layer's ability to receive shadows from another 3D layer. This option can also be set to Off, On, or Only. Only will act as a shadow catcher and reveal the accepted shadow on the transparent layer. Accepts lights enables a 3D layer to accept lights within the scene. Ambient is the non-directional reflectivity of the layer and is like having a layer equally lit from all directions. Diffuse is the omnidirectional reflectivity of the layer. The further away the layer is from a light source, the more darkness will appear in the layer. Specular intensity is the directional reflectivity of the layer and how shiny the layer appears. Specular shininess is the size of the specular highlight and glossiness of the reflection. Glossiness can range from blurry to mirror-like. And metal is the contribution of the layer color to the color of the specular highlight. A value of 100% metal means that the highlight color is the color of the layer. Unlike 2D layers, 3D layers interact with shadows and lights. After Effects uses 4 types of lights that are similar to real-world lights. Add a new light to the composition by going to Layer, New, Light, or use the shortcut Shift-Command-Y. Parallel lights emit directional light from a very long distance. Spotlights emit from a cone shape. Point lights emit in all directions. And ambient lights emit with no light source or shadow, but add to the overall luminance of a scene. Each of the 4 light types have options. Intensity is the brightness of the light. Intensity can be both positive and negative, meaning it can add to or take away light from a scene. Color determines the light color. A pro tip is to stay away from 100% white. Even slightly off-white lights can make a composition more visually appealing. Fall-off is how the light's intensity lessens over a distance. There are 3 types. The first, none, represents no decrease in light intensity, no matter the distance that the light travels. The second, smooth, represents a linear fall-off starting at the radius and extending by the fall-off distance. And the third, inverse square clamped, is a physically accurate fall-off starting at the radius and decreasing proportionally the further away the light gets. Radius is the area of fall-off. Fall-off distance is the distance the light falls from a light source. Cast shadows is whether or not the light casts a shadow on 3D layers. Shadow darkness is how dark the shadow appears. Point and spotlights have an additional option for shadow softness known as shadow diffusion. And finally, spotlights add cone angle and feather. Cone angle is the width size of the cone opening, and feather is the edge softness of that opening. A pro tip is to adjust shadow map resolution for scenes using lights that take too long to render or don't look quality enough in the final render. To adjust shadow map resolution, go to Composition, Composition Settings, 3D Renderer, Options. From here, a preset can be selected to increase or decrease the shadow map resolution. Layer stacking within the timeline can affect how 2D and 3D layers interact with each other and how a final composition will look. Normally, one 3D layer that is lit and stacked in front of another 3D layer will cast a shadow on the underneath layer. But when a 2D layer is inserted into the layer stack, a 3D layer will not cast a shadow on any other 3D layer that is on the other side of the 2D layer in the stacking order. This also applies to 3D layer intersections. A pro tip is to place an adjustment layer between the 3D layers where the unwanted shadow or intersection is seen. The adjustment layer is 2D, but remains invisible, and the unwanted shadow or intersection will disappear. Other types of layers can break unwanted shadows and intersections as well. They are 3D layers with applied layer styles, 3D pre-comps with applied effects, closed masks, or track mats, or 3D pre-comps without collapse transformations. New to After Effects CC 2017 is the Cinema 4D rendering engine. By using the Cinema 4D renderer, a 3D layer inside of After Effects can be bent, beveled, and extruded. To enable this renderer, press Command-K on the keyboard to open up composition settings. Click on the 3D Renderer tab. From here, select Cinema 4D. A list of enabled features and limitations will appear. Please take the time to read through them. Click on the Options tab. The new quality slider is meant to make it easy and take out the guesswork in setting ray threshold, ray depth, reflection depth, shadow depth, anti-aliasing, and reflectance, all by just dragging left or right. Choose a quality setting that has a good render speed and acceptable image quality. Before rendering, always slide the quality slider to the right to produce the best image results for a final render. Now, to bend a 3D layer, first ensure that the selected layer is 3D in the timeline. Then open up the geometry options by twirling down this arrow. Note that layer bending only works on imported footage, solid layers, and pre-comps. Since layer bending does not work on native text, the solution is to pre-compose the text first. Adjust the curvature between 0 and 100%. Geometry segments determine how many segments the curved layer is broken into. The default segment number is 4. Double the number of segments until a desired smoothness level is achieved. With the Cinema 4D renderer, 3D text and shape layers can be beveled and extruded. Z-depth is added by increasing extrusion. Increase bevel and bevel hole depth to give outer and inner edge depth. Slide between values of 1 and 10, or directly input a number above 10 for larger bevels. There are 4 bevel styles built in: none, angular, concave, and convex. Additional material options for reflections also become available when using the Cinema 4D renderer. When working with reflections, footage and nested pre-comps can be used as spherically mapped environment layers to make interesting reflections. To make an environment layer, choose Layer, Environment Layer, or right-click on the layer in the timeline. The layer will switch from 2D to 3D, and a small globe icon will appear next to its name. Properties for orientation, rotation, and transparency are all animatable. Appears in reflections indicates if the current 3D layer appears in other layers' reflections. Reflection intensity controls how much other reflective 3D layers appear on the 3D layer. Reflection sharpness controls the sharpness or blurriness of reflections. Reflection roll-off controls the amount of Fresnel effect, which is the intensity of reflections at certain angles. A pro tip is to slightly vary materials on different surfaces so that each surface is not exactly the same. This can make compositions more visually appealing. To do this technique, open up the Shape properties. Located next to Contents, click on the arrow for Add. The different side options for front, bevel, side, and back are available here. On text layers, these options can be found in the Properties under the Animate arrow. In the Ray Trace 3D renderer, a 3D layer has the same geometry options as found in the Cinema 4D renderer: bending, beveling, and extrusions. But the Ray Trace renderer produces a slightly different look. To enable this renderer, press Command-K on the keyboard to open up composition settings. Click on the 3D Renderer tab. From here, select Ray Trace 3D. A list of features and limitations similar to the Cinema 4D renderer will appear. Take the time to read through these as well. A pro tip is to use the Cinema 4D renderer whenever possible. It is faster than the Ray Trace renderer. A second pro tip to maximize workflow while using the Ray Trace renderer is to set the composition panel preview mode to draft. This setting is the equivalent of setting ray trace quality to 1 in composition settings, but be aware of limitations with shadows and reflections. Material options for the ray trace renderer are the same as the Cinema 4D renderer, with 2 added options: transparency and environment layer options. Transparency controls the material's transparency. Surfaces can be fully transparent, but still show reflections and specular highlights, like seen in glass. Transparency roll-off controls the amount of transparency relative to the viewing angle on a transparent surface. And index of refraction controls how light bends and distorts through 3D layers, with a value of 1 equaling no distortion and a value of 5 equaling solid glass or water. When using environment layers with the ray trace renderer, an option for appears and reflections will be enabled. This controls how the environment map is used in the scene. Set to on, the environment appears both in reflective objects and as a backdrop. Set to only, the environment appears only in reflective objects. And set to off, the environment appears only as a backdrop to the scene. A pro tip is to use the effect Stylize CC Reptile whenever seams are visible in the reflection. This effect helps to blend seams. Cineware is a powerful tool. It enables 3D layers to have even more advanced shapes, bevels, and textures, because 3D layers are built inside of Cinema 4D, but composited and rendered inside of After Effects. A version of Cinema 4D comes packaged with After Effects CC. With Cineware, After Effects can import any pre-built Cinema 4D project or export any composition directly to Cinema 4D. To import a Cinema 4D project, go to File, Import, and import the file. Make a new composition by going to Composition, New Composition, and drag the Cinema 4D file from the project window into the composition. The Cineware effect is automatically added and can be found in the Effects panel. To edit the Cinema 4D file, select the file in the timeline and go to Edit, Edit Original. Cinema 4D will launch. Make any necessary changes inside of Cinema 4D and then save the file. In After Effects, the Cinema 4D file is automatically updated. To synchronize timelines between Cinema 4D and After Effects, enable Live Link. Render settings control how the image looks and tells After Effects which Cinema 4D renderer to use. The camera is selected under Project Settings. Choose from baked-in cameras in the Cinema 4D file, a new centered comp camera in After Effects, or an existing After Effects camera already in the timeline. Cinema 4D layers, when checked, allow for layers to be on or off within the Cinema 4D file. This means a Cinema 4D file can turn on or off 3D elements internally. By duplicating the Cinema 4D file and setting each of these layers to show individual elements, compositing becomes easier because of the ability to stack layers. Multipass image layers enables specific compositing layers to be extracted into After Effects. And lastly, Commands extracts Cinema 4D scene data directly into After Effects. This can include cameras, lights, and position data from external compositing tags. In this series, we explored how to enable and control 3D layers, how to work with lights and shadows, how to utilize material options, and how to take advantage of the advanced renderers and settings. Now that you know the techniques to master 3D layers inside of After Effects, it's time to put that knowledge into practice. Download the free After Effects project file below and explore how I use different 3D layer techniques to build it. Practice makes perfect, and the more you practice, the better you will become as a motion designer. I would love to hear your thoughts about this training series and what you would like to see in future series, so please leave a comment below. Thanks for taking the time to watch, and until next time, I'm Cameron, and this is Motion Science.